All right, guys, we're going to use this graphic organizer to help us make sure we're picking the right method to factor. Factoring is key to solving quadratics, which is what we're about to get into, getting to solving polynomials. Quadratic is a type of polynomial. So these are the steps for all the 4 types. So we always look for a GCF first. And so let's say we had 2 terms. 2 terms means we have they will be separated by a plus or a minus. So if we just only see 2 items separated by a plus or minus, then we're going to check to see if we have difference in squares. Now, if we have a difference in squares, we must see subtraction. That's the difference part. And then perfect squares, this is what we talked about the other day. Those are our numbers that their factors are itself. So 1's a perfect square because 1 times 1. All right, 4. The 2 factors are the same, 2 times 2. Okay. We can do 100 because 10 times 10 gives me 100. So first thing we do is we check to see if we have subtraction problem. We have 2 terms and I have subtraction, so we're good. So then what we're going to do is see if we have a perfect square. I could take the square root of x squared and get just x. I could take the square root of 64 and just get 8. So now whenever I have difference of squares, we're going to have basically this becomes our result in our binomial. We would have x minus 8 and then x plus 8. Remember, when we have difference in square, you're going to have a plus and minus as part of your factors. Now, on this next one here, remember, our first step is always still to check for a GCF. And if I look here, I'm going to go for a different color. I have 18m squared n and 2n cubed. So I do have a GCF they have in common, and that would be 2n. Okay, 2 can go into 18, and n is the smallest variable that they have in common. So we're going to do a GCF first. That means this 2n is outside the parentheses, and we're just going to do the division. 18 divided by 2 is the 9. The n's here cancel, leaving me with 9m squared. The minus, well, the 2's are going to cancel, and this is just going to be n squared. And so now we're back to the difference of squares, because this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square. So my final, I can just simplify both of these. My final answer would be the 2n outside the parentheses, leaving me with 3m minus n and 3m plus n. Okay. So this would end up being the final answer. Okay, I forgot to box that one. Now, for this next one is if you have 3 terms separated by addition or subtraction, then we have 2 options. Does it have a coefficient? So with the coefficient would be slide and multiply. That's to the right over here. Without a coefficient, or let's say the coefficient is a visible 1, then we're going to go straight, no coefficient, no number in front, straight using the X puzzle. So we're looking for factors of C. C is your last term. This represents the last term. And the B here, the B represents the middle. Okay. So some people are able to do this mentally, but right off the bat, I see that the coefficient is that invisible 1. So I look at the last term, which is right here, this negative 42. So this negative 42 is what I'm going to put in my puzzle, my X puzzle. So I'm looking for factors of this negative 42 with a sum of the middle term. Well, that's like an invisible 1 there. So I'm looking for a negative 1 at the bottom. My B is a negative 1. So my factors here, anytime it's negative, anytime I see a negative, I know it's going to have to be negative or positive. So it means I'm looking for the difference between the 2 numbers that give me 42. Well, 6 and 7 give me 42, and the difference between them is 1. Well, if I want it to be a negative 1, then I just need my 7 to be the negative and my 6 to be the positive, because we want the bigger one to be the negative. So right there, I can get to my answers. This would be x minus 7, my factors, and x plus 6. And we're done. Right there. Now on this next example, we need to do a GCF first, because I see a 2W, a 20W, and 50, but I know 2 can go into all of those. So we're going to divide each term by 2. Now we're going to have w squared minus 10w plus 25. So now I'm back to a basic trinomial. There's no number coefficient in front of this w squared. So I can go back to this x puzzle. I'm going to just put it to the side here. And look at the last term, which is the 25, and go to the middle term, which is negative 10. So I'm looking for factors of 25. Oh, actually, it was plus 10. Sorry, that should be a plus. There was a plus right there. So plus 10. Factors of 25 with the sum of 10. So that's just 5 and 5. Okay. So my final answer here would be 2 parentheses w plus 5 and w plus 5. But hopefully remember we talked about if I have two binomials as factors that are the same, I can simplify that as just 2 parentheses w plus 5 squared, because we have two factors of that binomial. So this would actually be the final answer. The top one is acceptable, but just understand you might get an answer choice that looks like that. Now, trinomial, 3 terms, try for 3. If I now see a coefficient, so now they're saying, look, there's a number, there's an a, there's a number that's going to be in front of this x squared. Here we didn't have an a. Then we have to remember to slide and multiply and then divide and bottom up. So we're doing a times c. So this is what this is showing here, a times c. B is still at the bottom. So we still want to check for GCF. So if I look here, 30x squared, 27x, and 6, I know 3, let me fix my font, sorry, goes in all of them. So I'm going to take out the 3 first, leaving me with 10x squared. Then this would be minus 9x. And then this would be plus 2. But if I look here now, I have a coefficient in front of this x squared, which is 10. So I'm going to slide this 10 and multiply it to the last term, this 2. So now in my puzzle is really 20. 10 times 2 is 20. So looking at factors of 20 with the sum of a negative 9. Well, that would be negative 5 and negative 4. So I keep the 3 outside the parentheses. We have x minus 5 and x minus 4. But because we had that coefficient of a 10 here, we have to divide everything by 10, by that coefficient. Now, on here, this fraction needs to be reduced. Okay, I'm just going to write reduce the fraction. All right, so when I reduce it, keep the 3 on the outside of the parentheses. This is going to be x minus 1/2. And this is going to be x minus 2/5. Okay, and so then our last step here is to remember bottom up. I'm just going to write a little note, bottom up. The bottom number here, the 2, needs to go up to the front. This 5 needs to go up to the front. So that lets me know that my final answer is 3 parentheses 2x minus 1 and 5x minus 2. Okay, bottom up. Bottom number goes up. And then our last one, grouping here, is anytime I see 4 terms. So if you look here, I have to have 4 terms separated by plus or minus. And whenever that happens, then we're going to start off with grouping the first 2 together, the second 2 together. Then we look at the first 2, find a GCF between them. The GCF here would be a squared. Okay, so the a squared is outside the parentheses, leaving me with 2a minus b. Then I have a plus sign. And then I look for a GCF between 10a and 5b. Well, the GCF here would be 5. So the 5 is outside the parentheses, leaving me with 2a minus b. So right off, hopefully you see the 2 common binomials. So that is one of our factors. Okay, I need to change my font, sorry. 2a minus b, and then the other factors are your GCF that was outside. So this would be a squared plus 5. All right, guys, so this we're going to use to help getting to solving. So we're going to start, you're going to see this next in class. We're going to start solving quadratics by factoring. So we're going to go through some steps, but you got to factor. You got to know the different ways here to be able to do that. All right, thanks for getting this done. And let's get to work when I see you next.